So the problem people in Birmingham have is John Cotton's strategy was fundamentally Maoist. So Cotton and his team, or HR, CIPD riddled HR team, would of course pump CSG propaganda into our laptops via the computer screens. So if you look up CIPD guidance, it's effectively a sort of toxic mental poison, and that was exacerbated by Canning pumping out ENEI mental poison, which of course is part of a patronage network seemingly going back to David Blunkett. So if you follow the money plus follow the ideology, again two variables that the Brummies wouldn't be able to cope with, now add in again financial damages in the city of Birmingham. When you think in terms of national policy, it's sitting on the equivalent of an exploded bomb just in financial terms. So if you think of the damage John Cotton and Chris Nelly did to the city financially, that's catastrophic. And then you think about it countrywide, it's fairly obvious that someone like Cotton belongs in jail, along with Naylor, Bridget Jones, these kind of people. But they were able to book it out of the city after all the troubles in sort of 2020 and beyond. But because these people abandoned the city when those of us sort of kept the faith in a sense and were looking after it during the time of crisis, in the court service, we weren't kicking off then. We were saying calmly to employer, no employer, this is dangerous and dumb. This is why we're doing it via the whistleblowing outlet regarding the then chief executive. We went through the commissioners, we went through line managers, we went through CD managers, we went through the press, we went through literally everybody. And again, in Birmingham, they are still sort of short-circuiting and creating fictitious bureaucrats with laptops. But in terms of political strategy, so John Cotton's strategy was Maoist effectively, so low-high, create more resentful identity goblins and then manage them under quote-unquote equity. So you have these pointless meetings looking for the magical equity, but of course they're all dumb because equity doesn't exist. And someone intelligent going in there and saying, well, this is word games bullshit. It's not actually real. You're not getting anything. You'll get some token job at the end of it or something, and you'll give up your dignity, of course. By the way, along the way, you never actually get to be free because you'll be alive in one of these patronage networks, which is dissolving the country around you as the pound diminishes in value, or you can actually follow the law, which would involve the Nolan principles and being forthright in your actions, which would involve obviously looking at a whole country picture as well as local, national, local, proximal, what's coming through the laptop in terms of case management. So because your career was in the hands of absolute criminal morons, I mean, my career was in the hands of Jennifer Southall. Feel free to stick a camera in this woman's face, let Frank interview her. That should be an interesting conversation. But because the human capital was just so low, and because the prestige of the job was non-existent, people just don't care about it, think it's revolting, don't understand what kind of person will be needed to do that kind of thing. You're on the top of 54,000 properties, one of two people sticking through possession orders, a course of action that will lead to people being physically assaulted, and you're having to actually make the ethical decision to actually not actually do that, but hold the cases back. Your job in every case is to hold it back in every way you possibly can to get to the end of the result where you just can't and have to attack someone. And you think about the team around you that would be required to have to be legally compliant. Well, the team in the city of Birmingham, I can't ethically do the job, I can't legally do the job. So what does Birmingham expect to do? You can't create fictitious bureaucrats and pretend your staff has sort of vanished into a sort of children's story, can you, morons? That's not how the world works. So, for the record, again, the current position with the Brummies is they can come to Edinburgh Castle, they can come to St Giles and have an adult conversation, but none of them will. So it's not just the assertiveness of finally the British state giving up on trying to prohibit psychiatric medication that makes people both assertive and intelligent. Because you can fix your brain via psychotherapy, then you can have a look at the state and the state of things and engage in the political process. So the government probably didn't want people to be medicated and healthy, But thankfully, this is why communists always lose. Even in Starmer's Britain, the private sector hasn't been completely stamped out. The kulaks are still collecting grain, so at least private clinics can still sell psychoactive medication that lets us record corruption in Birmingham for the rest of our life, just solo, just with the faith position that at some point the police will turn up in Birmingham, and someone will have their laptop taken off them, and someone will engage in a forensic IT search for criminals, and at some point the criminals will go to jail, and at some point the country will be fixed, and at some point the kingdom of God will be back on earth, and at some point the British will go back to building Jerusalem. But at the moment Jerusalem isn't in Birmingham because it's being hit by the equivalent of a meteor. Again, I'd happily lay siege to the city with artillery units, but at the moment we'll just try and get political power and resolve things that way. Yes, the pipes are friendly, but you may want to avoid Birmingham as the smoke begins to rise from the Brummie's feet. Kate Fox, the worst HR woman in the country, has to explain why one of my colleagues are being denied their cannabis.